The millionaire took a girl to his mansion to take care of his daughter who was dying. But one day, when he got home, he saw something she did that left him paralyzed. That morning, before leaving for work, George entered the room of Sarah and approached the bed. He gave a little kiss on her forehead and said, "I'm off to work, my love. I'll be home later so we can spend some time together, okay?" Sarah smiled weakly and coughed. To her father's despair, a bit of blood stained the sheet she used to cover her mouth. He knew it was a worrying sign related to the cystic fibrosis that afflicted her. With a heavy heart, the millionaire left the room trying to hold back his tears. The grandmother stayed to look after her, worried about her granddaughter's condition. As he left the house, the man faced a cold and rainy day. The grey sky seemed to reflect the sadness and worry he felt as he walked to his car. Throughout the day, the poor father couldn't concentrate on work, constantly checking his phone hoping to hear from Sarah. George was a successful businessman, owner of a large company in the pharmaceutical field. A tireless worker, he always dedicated himself to ensuring a comfortable life for his family. However, life had not always been kind to him. His wife Linda died in a tragic car accident a few years ago, leaving him alone with his little daughter and an emptiness in his heart. Linda's death deeply affected both father and daughter. As a widower, he sought refuge in work to cope with the pain. The girl faced emotional difficulties, and shortly after was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, a genetic disease that primarily affects the lungs and digestive system. The disease caused the production of thick and sticky mucus, making it difficult for her to breathe and digest, as well as making her more susceptible to infections. Sarah's weakened health became the businessman's main concern, and he did everything in his power to find the best treatments and doctors available. However, despite being in the pharmaceutical field and having access to the best treatments and medications, his daughter's illness progressed, leaving her increasingly weak and disheartened. The house, which was once full of laughter and joy, became quiet and sad. The man and the girl's grandmother, who lived with him, did their best to support and care for her, but the circumstances made it hard to maintain hope. Then, around lunchtime, he decided to take a walk to try to clear his mind a bit. The rain had lessened, but a fine drizzle still fell. It was at that moment that George spotted a 16-year-old girl sitting on the rain-soaked sidewalk. The young woman looked lost and sad, and the businessman felt an irresistible urge to help her. He approached and offered his umbrella, saying, "You seem to need this more than I do." The girl looked up at him with a shy smile and replied, "Thank you, sir. I really wasn't prepared for this rain." But she noticed his sad expression and asked, "Are you okay? You seem worried about something." Surprised by her sudden insight and moved by a strange force that made him feel at ease, he opened up. He told her about his teenage daughter who was battling a terminal illness. The young woman listened attentively, showing an empathy and understanding that seemed beyond her years. He also asked why she was outside in the rain, and the girl explained that she had nowhere to go and was trying to shelter from the bad weather. Then, her stomach rumbled loudly, making the poor girl shrink in embarrassment. Noticing how hungry she seemed, George invited her to a nearby diner, although it might seem a bit odd, a man inviting a young stranger to lunch. He saw in her a reflection of Sarah, and his concern was genuine. At the diner, the girl introduced herself as Emily and shared a bit about herself. The man realized that she lived on the streets and asked, "How long have you been on the streets? How do you sustain yourself?" She replied, "My parents died some time ago. They were from the streets too, but I'm a good person, sir. I just haven't had opportunities in life. But I believe that one day I will achieve something and that will get me out of this situation," Emily said, looking sad at her soda. Moved by her tough life story, the man decided to make her an offer. "As I told you, I have a daughter your age who is very sick. She can't get out of bed alone and has no friends because of that. I know it might sound very strange, but would you accept being her friend? You can stay with us. We have a very big house with several rooms and maybe." He realized it was indeed a very unusual proposal. "What I mean, Emily, is that I feel a lot of sincerity coming from you. I've also been through tough times in life because I came from the bottom, you know? I'd like to give you that opportunity you talked about. If you can be a friend to my daughter and take care of her, I'll pay you a salary. Plus, you'd have a better place to live. What do you think?" The young woman hesitated for a moment but eventually accepted the invitation since something about the man conveyed trust and security. Thus, George came home with the girl, opened the door, and kindly said, "Please, come in, make yourself comfortable. This is your home now, at least for a few days." She, a bit shy, thanked him and entered the mansion. At that moment, Mrs. Johnson, the grandmother who was in the living room, raised her eyebrows upon seeing the stranger in their home. However, Emily's docility and charisma were undeniable, and the old lady could not help but feel a certain sympathy for her. George explained the situation to his mother, saying, "Mum, this is Emily. She's going to stay with us for a few days. I think she can be a good friend for Sarah and also needs a place to stay." The old lady, noticing her son's genuine compassion, agreed with the decision, even though the situation seemed somewhat unusual. She knew George had always been a kind person and was doing this for the good of everyone. The man showed Emily a room where she could stay, and the young woman was grateful for the hospitality. She took a hot shower and put on clean clothes that the grandmother kindly offered her. While the young woman was settling in, Mrs. Johnson couldn't help but think about how the girl seemed to light up the environment, even with her discreet presence. Then, after she felt more comfortable, the millionaire took her to meet Sarah. He knocked on the door of his daughter's room and upon entering said, "Daughter, there's someone I'd like you to meet. This is Emily, she's a friend who will be staying with us for a few days." The two exchanged shy glances and a clumsy smile. He felt it was better to leave them alone to get to know each other better and said goodbye. "Talk for a bit, I'm sure you'll get along well." The girls began to talk more openly and soon realized they had a lot in common. The grandmother, listening to the girls' conversation from the hallway, felt relieved to see that her granddaughter was finally opening up to someone her age. With that, the days went by, and the friends became inseparable. They spent hours chatting, laughing, and sharing stories. The house, which had been quiet and sad, was now filled with laughter and joy. George was delighted to see his daughter smiling and full of life again, something that hadn't happened in a long time. However, Mrs. Johnson began to notice that unusual events started occurring in the house since the young woman's arrival. One afternoon, for example, as Emily was in the garden picking flowers to put in the vase in Sarah's room, the lady saw the withered flowers around her come to life and bloom again within minutes. Astonished, she asked, "How is this possible?" The young woman smiled and replied, "Nature has its own way of showing us its wonders, doesn't it?" And she left, leaving the old lady perplexed. On another occasion, the grandmother witnessed the girl touching her granddaughter's arm, and the girl's cough, which used to be persistent and exhausting, ceased instantly. The old lady couldn't understand how that was happening. So, whenever he returned from work, George would usually find his mother in the living room, and she would tell him about the day's events and Sarah's progressive improvement. She shared her observations with her son, who was also surprised and incredulous at the things she told him. He listened attentively, committed and confused, because it couldn't be possible, could it? That's why one night, the father decided to talk to his daughter about her friend. "How are you, dear?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I'm feeling much better, Dad. Emily is an amazing friend, I'm so happy she's here with us," the girl replied with a smile on her face. "I'm happy too, my daughter. And then, your grandmother told me about some strange things that happen when Emily is around. What do you think about that?" he inquired. Sarah looked at her father and said, "I know it sounds strange, but Emily has an incredible energy. I feel good and happy when I'm around her. I see no reason to question." George felt thoughtful but decided to call the doctors to examine her again. When the doctors arrived the next day, they were completely amazed by the girl's improvement. It was something unexplainable. "It's really amazing," one of them said. "Your daughter is showing significant improvement, and that's something that we, as doctors, can't fully explain. It's not common for cystic fibrosis patients to improve so quickly." The man and the mother looked at each other, knowing that the mysterious young woman had something to do with Sarah's improvement, even though they couldn't explain how or why. "What matters is that she's getting better," said another doctor. "But we'll continue to monitor the situation and adjust the treatment as necessary, okay?" Then, after they left, George and the lady sat in the living room, still trying to understand what was happening, and commented, "I know it's weird, Mum," said the businessman, "but if Emily is helping Sarah get better, I don't want to question it. What matters is that our girl is happy and feeling better." "Ah," the grandmother agreed, sighing. "You're right, my son. Whatever Emily is doing, it's a blessing to me. Let's just accept that and be very thankful for having this young woman in our lives." Meanwhile, the two continued to strengthen their friendship and enjoy their days together. And despite the mystery surrounding the young woman's abilities, the family chose to accept and appreciate the miracle that was happening before their eyes. Sarah's health was improving day by day, and everyone was grateful that Emily had brought light and hope to that home. But the strange things didn't stop there. One day, George was getting ready to leave home and go to work as usual. The routine was already ingrained in him: wake up, have breakfast, dress, and follow the main route to the company. However, that day something unexpected happened. Emily approached him and pleaded, "Please, don't take the main route to work today. Go another way." Surprised by the sudden plea and the concerned tone of the young woman, the man hesitated for a moment, trying to understand the reason behind the request. However, something inside him told him to heed her advice. So, without questioning further, he decided to follow her advice. As he drove along the new route, George couldn't stop thinking about why Emily had made such a request. But why was she so scared? What does she know that I don't? The road was quieter than usual, and traffic flowed smoothly. The day was sunny, with a clear blue sky, and everything seemed to be going very well. That left him even more puzzled. However, when he arrived at work, the businessman received shocking news. A terrible accident had occurred on the main street, exactly where he would have passed if he had followed his usual route. A building had collapsed, causing chaos and destruction. Rescue teams worked frantically to help the victims while the city's residents watched in horror. The millionaire was shocked and incredulous, realizing that Emily's advice had saved him from imminent danger. All day he couldn't concentrate on anything, thinking about the young woman and how she knew about the accident before it even happened. Thus, he quickly returned home that night, dying of curiosity about who she was and why she knew everything. He parked the car in the garage and with hurried steps entered the house and rushed to his daughter's room, hoping to find Emily and clarify what had happened. But it was then that the man heard voices coming from the room and realized that the two were talking. Trying to be discreet, George leaned against the wall next to the door, which was half open, listening intently to the two's dialogue. "Sarah, you are a very strong girl, and I know you can overcome this," Emily said in a soft and encouraging voice. I don't know, I want to believe, but it's been so long since I walked," the girl replied hesitantly. "Walk?" thought the father. It turns out Sarah had not been able to walk for more than 2 years due to the progression of cystic fibrosis. The disease had weakened her body so much that her muscles had atrophied, making it impossible for her to get out of bed. The girl felt trapped in her own body, which increased her discouragement and sadness. The father and grandmother shared that anguish, feeling powerless in the face of the situation and fearing for her future. Then, he moved even closer to the door to hear them. "I understand, but I'm here now, and I'll help you. Believe in yourself, please," and with a trembling voice, she said, "Okay, I'll try." Emily approached her, held her hands, and encouraged her. "That's right, breathe deeply and concentrate. Feel the strength within you. I'm here with you." Sarah closed her eyes and slowly began to move her legs. At first, her movements were shaky and uncertain, but as she gained confidence, she began to rise from the bed. The father opened the door and stood paralyzed, barely able to believe what he was seeing. Mrs. Johnson entered the room as well, and her eyes filled with tears as she saw her granddaughter standing. She approached her and hugged her excitedly. "I can't believe it," said the old lady, sobbing. Emily smiled gently, stepped back, allowing the girl and her grandmother to share that special moment. Sarah, still feeling a bit unstable, held firmly to the old lady's hands and said, "I know, Grandma, it's incredible. Emily helped me." George, unable to contain himself any longer, entered the room with teary eyes and, approaching his daughter, hugged her tightly. "My daughter, you have no idea how proud and happy I am for you," he stated emotionally. "I'm happy too, Dad. I never thought I would walk again," she replied with a bright smile on her face. The man turned to Emily and said with gratitude, "I don't know how you did it, nor how to thank you enough. You made a miracle happen in my daughter's life." Humbly, she replied, "I just wanted to help my friend be happy and healthy. That's all I wish for." Then, the father and grandmother continued to hug and cry with the girl, moved and relieved to see her walk again. Tears ran down everyone's faces as they shared that precious moment. The joy and gratitude filled the air, and the heart of each of them overflowed with love and happiness. But suddenly, the old lady noticed something strange. But where's Emily? They looked around, but they had not noticed that while they were involved in their emotional hug, she had moved away, smiling at that beautiful scene. "Emily! Emily! Where are you?" shouted the man, worried. Everyone started calling her and searching for her throughout the mansion, but they found no sign of her. And when they were already frustrated and confused, Sarah suggested, "Dad, can we look at the security cameras? Maybe we can find out where she is, or where she left. There are cameras all over the mansion, right? Let's look." "Confirmed," he said. So, the three gathered in the monitoring room where the images from the cameras were displayed. For security reasons, there were cameras spread throughout the property, including in the rooms, since the mansion was huge. The tension and suspense in the air were palpable as the father advanced the recordings, searching for any clue to Emily's whereabouts. However, something they could never have imagined was revealed. To everyone's astonishment, the recordings showed that there had never been another girl in the mansion. In the images, George appeared alone when he first came home with her. Mrs. Johnson, who clearly remembered talking to Emily, was actually talking to the wind. And the most shocking scene of all, Sarah getting up and walking, with no one in the room. Everyone was horrified and goosebumped at the discovery. George questioned, incredulous, "How is this possible? We all saw and talked with Emily. She was here, helping Sarah get better." Remembering all the incredible moments they had spent with the girl, they couldn't understand how she had never been there, how the cameras hadn't captured her presence, how she knew about the accident, and how the daughter had recovered from her illness. The questions piled up, but no answer made sense. Then, Sarah, still frightened but grateful, said with tears in her eyes, "Whoever she was, or whatever she was, Emily helped us and brought back happiness and hope, Dad. We may never know the truth, but we'll always remember her with love and gratitude." He and the old lady agreed, still confused. And so, the story of the mysterious young woman remained an enigma. And about the girl's illness, when the doctors conducted another battery of tests, they couldn't believe the results. She's completely cured. This is a miracle, because even we ourselves can't explain what might have happened. But those three knew. They had no idea whether she was an angel, an entity, or God himself, but whoever she was, she saved the girl's life and brought back the light that was missing in that family. Although Emily was never seen again, her mystical presence left a lasting impact on the heart and soul of those three. She was proof that sometimes, the most extraordinary things can happen in the most unexpected moments and in inexplicable ways. And as much as they tried to unravel the mystery, George, Sarah, and Mrs. Johnson learned to accept and appreciate the magic she brought into their lives. What do you think of this story? Do you think they acted right? Leave your comment below to know your opinion. It is very important to us. If you like this exciting story, help us by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Thank you very much for watching us and see you in the next story.